Hello, everyone. So this time we're going to do this podcast in English, as normally, it's for French people in Barcelona. There's way too many people that from France are living in Barcelona. I'm very happy to welcome Mr. Alessandro Pintaudi.
Thank you.
Alessandro, we've known each other for many years, and actually more than 10 years ago, we tried to launch a business together. And you've always been a product guy. You worked at Weekend Desk, you worked at PayFit, Amenities, and what is it, a year ago, more or less,
Correct.
you decided to launch your own company, which is around sales and let's say sales and enablement tool, which is I would say the official name for this kind of product. And my first question is why, especially in the B2B SaaS world and in B2B world, we have this impression that all salespeople are selling the same fucking way, which tends to be boring when you are the buyer and probably less and less efficient. How do you explain the fact that after all those years, we still have the impression that sales is not efficient?
That's very true, and that's a very good question. You can go from different levels. Actually, you can go from the telcos that is actually look like a robot calling you every single day to change your bill, to a bit more complex way of emailing or selling where there's not much personalization. Messages look all the same, like how many messages you receive every single day in your LinkedIn inbox or your...
Many.
Exactly. So little personalization, but it's more about automation. And then you can go to different levels of automating few tags like first name, last name, analyzing a bit more pain points. And so it looks a little bit more human, but it's still quite automated. And so I think there are two main reasons for that. The first one is a reason for automation, like companies wants to automate the process and therefore they care less about the quality. And so
what they want is a number, basically.
Yeah, number. Yeah. I mean, we all been raised with Salesforce methodology. Sales is a number game. The more leads you have at a given conversion, the more demo you generate, and the more demo you generate, the more customer you sign.
And it's kind of linear in a certain sense.
Yeah, and the theory looks great, but the practice is different. The practice, in most of the cases, you have 20% generating 80% of your revenues, and the bottom of your team in the end is going to turn over month because it's not reaching even their targets. Lack of trainings can be one. At the end of the day, the personalization that they put in place, reaching out the targets, it's also one of the causes why they don't reach it. And, we've been raised as well with the concept of that we want to be we want to be told and treated the way we want to be treated, which is not the case because like if I like sweets, I don't want to be receive a book if it's what the salesman likes. I want to receive sweets.
Yeah.
And therefore, knowing the other person, knowing the personality, knowing what triggers the other person to create a connection is actually what makes a deal come true or not, especially in B2B.
Yeah, which is, I mean, what we can see here is that yes, we were raised in automation, volume, and kind of in an idea, in a theory that sales was a game of demand and offer. So basically, regardless, who you are, if you have the need, or if I identify that you have the need, you should be buying my product. But I think it's probably, maybe it was true, maybe it's partly true, but it's really lacking of the psychological pattern that's behind. So I think, and that's what you're tackling. I think that if I like sweet, as you were saying, I want you to understand that I like sweet because I'm not going to tell you, and this enters the psychological world, no?
Correct. Like you mentioned, maybe for 5% of the companies out there, Google, Facebook, and the transactional way of selling, you don't need to know much about the person you have in front. But if you think about the last product you purchased, if it was a B2B product, did you just purchase the product or did you also purchase it because of the person you spoke with? And the other way around, why have you not purchased a product? Maybe the product was great, but the person who sold you to the product did not inspire you, did not convince you, did not had that level of trust that eventually will make that leap of faith of abandoning something that you already know for something a bit new, no? And
Yeah, which is funny here is that regardless the pain point, maybe to some extent, it's regardless you have the pain point or which level of pain, in which level of pain you are with regard to this issue, this does not, the intensity of the pain does not necessarily push you to conversion.
That's correct. Especially now where you have so many solutions to solve the very same pain point. And so people and consumers have a vast range of solutions to choose from. And so which one they pick is not only price, is not only the product, is not only the service, it's a combination of those factors. And the person that is the best in displaying those benefits in the end is the person you're speaking to. And so obviously if you automate that, you can automate it up to a certain extent. You're creating a transaction there. And so you can automate it fully. If you need to book a restaurant, if you have a bot that is doing that for you, that's fine. You know, like you want a restaurant at that hour with specific characteristics. But if you're purchasing a product, then you are creating a relationship. And
prior to the conversion itself.
Exactly. And so creating a relationship in the end, like it's a human to human connection that it's made of multiple stimulus. Like I need to know your personality because, you know, if I'm an emotional person and and you're an analytical person, either I adapt to your style or there's going to be a problem. I'm going to speak about number. You're going to, willing to create more conversational approach or knowing a bit more what I did for the weekend. And you know, we're going to go in different directions very soon.
So yeah, I think that we tend to forget or I mean, intentionally forget about this because it's a complex topic. And I think we all kind of know that sales is like seduction. Well, it is a game of seduction, but you know, with wife or men's, you have no choice but to enter the psychological game where you think that sales, you can be either pushy and, you know, get people out of exhaustion to buy your product. And in that sense, because I guess that while you were having the idea of Kombo and creating the product, you had to read through very bad examples. So just before we probably give some hints about how to do it well, do you have examples of strategies that were really absolutely awful and that can still be, live today, despite the fact that we expect a certain maturity on the sales market?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we can go from the classic telcos that are calling you every single day, not knowing who you are and going straight with the pitch and just going through like the benefits of the product without even knowing whether you feel a pain or not, with a very standard voice and without even trying to build a connection.
Not even pretending.
Yeah, exactly. Not even pretending to build a connection to something a bit more sophisticated where you receive automated emails that you can, if you're in this industry, very quickly recognize, that are using the same triggers, like, hi, first name, I'm from this person, maybe adding a bit more personalization. I've looked at your previous LinkedIn post and so something triggered a conversation to a bit more sophisticated ones. The problem is that, using triggers, automated triggers, often turns as well into mistakes because you don't make connections between what makes sense and what doesn't.
Yeah, it's not because you're part of a cluster in a database that, I'm talking to you the right way.
Yeah,
not
and I've been classified tier 1, and so the tier 1s for me follow a certain logic, then it makes sense for me. And so I think automation and AI right now are good at doing like 80% of the job, but the 20% that is really missing and is making the difference between purchasing a product and not purchasing a product, especially when it comes to like the actual selling. I think the best examples are like poker gamers, psychologists. Those are the best sellers. And because they can read through your mind, they can understand a bit your psychology and know how to mirror you, how to answer the right questions, how to make the right questions at the right time, and how to push and how to pull, and in the end, read your mind and make you sell. Manipulate in a sense, in a good way. I hope.
Yeah. But there is a sense of this, and what still strikes me as a potential buyer, being a CMO, is that, for instance, I still get less and less those very long LinkedIn messages like, hey, here is everything that we do and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And I don't even, I mean, I think I stopped reading it probably 5 years ago, if I was reading it before. But one thing you mentioned is on this 80-20 kind of rule is that we see patterns in automation that tends to mimic the personalization.
Yes.
But then when it replicates towards all the vendors or solution providers, quite quickly this trend, or what was maybe new in the for instance, the best example for me is the signal. Like, yeah, you need to get the signal through these and these kind of tools, blah, blah, blah. At the end, everybody's using them. So as a potential buyer, you see, it's like, like watching a movie and then suddenly you see the mic going down and it breaks the relation. And I think it's only about selling you some shit that the seller does not believe in. It breaks the potential relations. And so now that knowing that, okay, it's not only about adopting the last trend, a bit like the last
Correct.
TikTok trend and try to replicate it. How do you build this 20%? How do you build the real sell psychology machine? And how do you advise people? And I mean, that's what you do with Kombo. So how do you, I mean, is there a need of looking at the product? Is it a lot about the prospect? How what was the movement that took you into building Kombo?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we say always in our sales podcast is that, sales is it's a mix between art and science. Because it's an art means that you need to reinvent yourself every single day. You just mention it. What works or what worked 2 years ago, now everyone is copying it. And so it worked 2 years ago because it sounded original, but now it doesn't sound anymore because you look like a robot again. But then the science allows you to scale that because, you can't always have poker players or psychologists in your team. So you have a 20% that is the top. And then the rest, either you don't scale the team or, you're basically replacing it with AI and having the same issues with that. And so the way we want to solve the issue is basically first you need to understand which are the patterns that those top players are using. Knowing and adapting to the personality, it's easier maybe for a poker player, but not for everyone. So if you provide that, then you're making a person that is not as good at reading people, knowledgeable about something. If you're good at making questions and pulling out the right information from a conversation, then what we can do is providing that in advance for you. Like data is power, and so you can play with that. But then you need to create a machine that is adapting as well to the industry, to the company, and to the time. Yeah. Because the top performer today may not be top performer tomorrow. Yeah. And so listening to the calls, understanding what drives conversion in the top performers and breaking it down into the different parts of the conversation and giving a metrics to each of those parts and say, the top performer performed 9 out of 10 in discovery questions. This is an example. You'll give it to the low performer so you can learn from the top one in a more organic way. That eventually, if the approach will change, the rating will change, and so the recommendation will change as well. It's something very basic that a team leader should normally do with their team, but they don't have time to do it. Yeah. And so AI and our tool will have that level of automation so you can actually train and improve your skills.
But then one observation is that it's the end of the sales book. Usually the companies, they say, okay, we have this product, so there is it's an APA, it's linked to this industry, whatever. Our client looks like this, so apply this rule. Very Salesforce, very Xerox way,
you have a deck, a pitch with the questions.
Read it and never stop. So this is now with AI, and this is constantly changing because you have, as you say in the matrix, it can be the prospect mindset or the product or whatever kind of elements inside this spectrum that changes. Does the sales book
doesn't change.
Yeah, and that's one thing. But one key point, and I think you probably have enough maturity, is that all you're saying is that you're basically trying to, I wouldn't say change, but nudge people. Can we really change those people? Like a salesperson has his own characteristic and his own part of science, his own part of art, and by providing these elements, you're nudging them, you're changing the way they behave. Can we do that? I mean, it's really, naive question, but does it actually work?
It's a good question, definitely, and definitely it's a challenge for us. We are trying to use the methodology of the learn by doing. Like, you don't just learn it in a course, you just don't learn it in a pitch, but you learn it like when you actually need it. Like, before jumping on a call, like, I haven't prepared it. I didn't have 5 minutes to look at their LinkedIn and understand where this person is from, as basic as that. And so when information becomes key and urgent, we believe that in that way, like, you're desperate of having those information, and eventually will create the habit, like micro habit, so that you start learning that the importance of understanding the personality before jumping into a call, or preparing enough information about the company, or eventually doing your homework afterwards if you want to increase the conversion rate, and not having the not so nice conversation with your manager about
the
why you
awkward
didn't ask.
moment where you have to say, I didn't have the time. So it's like you are breaking, but I
Right.
think, the micro changes is really key to that, because you don't change from one day to another. I mean, we all had, 31st of December to 1st of January,
Yeah.
revolutionary changes
Of
that
course.
lasted until the midday of the 1st of January. And so the methodology for you is really to create those habits. Main one is when I'm going to call the prospect, then I'm opening Kombo, and I'm in this, I put that as a habit, so I know that I'm more confident, so I'm going to do it well.
Yeah, even easier. Like, you don't even have to go into another platform. The first, like, if you're late, you open your calendar and you jump into the conversation. If it's in your calendar, you have a link and it will open a panel where you have a brief of information, and you'll carry it while you are on the call. I'm not changing your habit. Like, you're still gonna be late for your call. You're still gonna jump into your call not knowing information, but 20 seconds before jumping on it, you are searching all the information you need in one click. And while you are in the conversation, you can already look at the key information, not to make questions that makes no sense.
Yeah, and you think that's, it's stupid to say that it's going to be a new pattern, because I think what is smart is that you're addressing the 20% non-AI or non-machinery, not automated, or that can't be automated. At the end, do you think that, we talk a lot about AI, you use AI as a tool, but do you think one day we'll be in a world where AI will book meetings to talk to AI, to sell the product to an AI, that will, be like in this loop where human won't be, and at the end we won't know what we purchased, what the fuck we purchased, and how do you see AI? Because we hear a lot about AI SDR. That's one of the trend. Agents now. There's been a new update about I don't recall, but like
Operator of
operators.
GPT that they can do. Yeah.
It's, how do you see this evolution towards actually those 20% that you're addressing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very tough question. I mean, I think nobody really knows what the AI how far it can go. And I think, probably if we look back in 5 years from now, like, we'll be amazed by how we're doing things. But I think, like always, there are things that you can always automate and revolutionize, and other things that, in the end, the human connection will still need to be there. Obviously, if you need to purchase orders for products or machinery, and you have like a planning system, replenishment system, that every year you need to do the same and look at the best providers, then of course, I mean, I think it makes sense to have like two AIs talking to one another, and based on forecasts,
for basic needs.
Exactly.
For basic product that you will always get, like a procurement system or whatever.
Exactly.
At some point, it's going to be dealt with machines between themselves.
I think for those, it makes actual sense. But I think there will be still some product, and I think at least until now, that based on the power of the machines and based on the level of the empathy that they can reach, they cannot yet create those relationships. And every time you need that relationship builder in order to create a purchase, then in that sense, you need two people.
Yeah.
And if you want to enhance that, then you need to enhance your people with other people, or with product and machine that will help you eventually make humans better and to compete with machines instead of just replacing them.
Clear. And kind of to end the conversation, if you had one advice, which can be something else than, subscribe to Kombo, but let's say I'm a founder and I've been doing the sales kind of in traditional way, and I put in traditional way testing many shitty tools. Not only traditional knocking at the door, but I'm looking to tools all the time, but maybe to increase the efficiency of the volume. And what would be your advice, or maybe the book that for whoever wants to enter psychological sales, like to do the first step to understand that putting the psychology of the seller and the buyers inside the sales process is key. Do you have like one advice or one book or one flow that could be helpful?
I mean, something very, very basic would be to look at, the past sales that you made and try to analyze the kind of people to which you were able to sell and the people that you were not able to sell. And try to understand if it was because of, the kind of company or actually the person that you spoke to. Because we tend to convert very well with certain people and less with others. And so if you identify that patterns, or if you identify that patterns in your sales team where for some reason you have top performers going very well with some type of companies, some type of industries, but not so well with others, that's already a pattern that might need a sort of personalization based on something more than reading a sales deck.
It says that, so, maybe we could summarize it in go and find the pattern.
That's correct.
Thank you, Ale. Very nice. And see you next time for the new episode.
Thank you.